Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargava. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. The Indian economy continues to languish. Its growth rate has touched a 6-year low and there is no respite in sight at the moment. Despite all the measures that the government has taken so far, we yet are to see any durable uptick in India's growth rate. The more disturbing part is that since last year about August, the government has been desperately trying to initiate revival measures in order to trigger faster growth in the economy. But these measures have failed to yield results. We've often said that that's because the diagnosis of what is the economy has been erroneous and the efforts to give relief have also been extremely delayed. For the Modi government at the moment, this is by far one of the biggest challenges. And now the growth rate slowdown is not just a game of numbers. What is very clear is it has to do with various factors which are impacting the very confidence and trust that entrepreneurs and households have in the Indian government. This troublesome scenario of the Indian economy was very well summarized recently by Mr. N. Chandrasekaran, the chairman of Tata Sons Limited. While delivering the Nani Palkhiwala Memorial Lecture, he said that what ails the Indian economy is micromanagement, of course by the government, and suspicion of the stakeholders towards the government. He said that what is needed is that we need to remove the obstacles that impede growth of the business. And he very clearly said that what we need is supervision and not suspicion. And according to him, all the rules that the government frames are loaded with suspicion. They start with suspicion. He said that we are always facing a situation where there is a tendency to control, and we need to be away from this control situation and this tendency to micromanage everything. Mr. Chandrasekaran said that growth in the Indian economy will not just come by pushing people and urging them to move. That's not how growth will come. He says what we need is a transformative vision, and along with that would come creation of further jobs, because he warned that in the next decade India is going to witness 90 million persons entering the job market, and we need to provide jobs to them in case we want to touch the 5 trillion target or beyond. What we need, according to him, is an educated, skilled and a very vibrant workforce. He further said, very interestingly, that there is a massive risk aversion in the economy today, and growth has not taken place because nobody wants to risk his capital. Risk taking is not getting rewarded today, and that is a major problem that we face. He welcomed and applauded the government's efforts to resolve legacy issues like delivery of benefits and corruption, and also the NPA crisis, which the government is tackling, of course, but which is yet to be resolved. He thus gave a very succinct picture on what ails the economy. And if you look at his analysis, it has little to do with numbers. It has to do with a state of mind where the entrepreneur is suspicious, the entrepreneur is risk averse, and the entrepreneur is not investing to create jobs. The biggest issue that ails the Indian economy, according to us, is that investments in the economy have come to a standstill. In the current financial year, the growth in fresh investments has been a mere 0.97% against a minimum desired growth rate of over 10%. We are at just 0.97%, and that's because if an entrepreneur is suspicious of what are the rules the government is framing or what they have been framed, or he is risk averse, he is certainly bound to conserve his capital and is not going to risk it into new investments. And that also explains why jobs are not getting created. The fact of the matter is that because of these factors of suspicion, risk aversion and jobs not getting created, as Mr. N. Chandra points out, because of that, according to us, all the major initiatives that were taken by the government in the last few months in order to revive growth of the Indian economy have not taken off. They have failed to deliver results. And what are those initiatives which were taken by the government hoping to revive the economy, and yet they did not take off because of suspicion and risk aversion. The first one, the government effected a massive rate cut in taxes. Corporate taxes have been pulled down to as low as 15% for a new unit which gets into manufacturing activity after 1st October 2019. The government took a bill of 1.72 lakh crores. That's the amount of tax the government is sacrificing by virtue of this cut in tax rates. The government was hoping that this amount of savings of corporates will be channelized into fresh investments into projects. Nothing like that has happened, and survey after survey of corporates indicates that they are not willing to channelize these tax savings into fresh investments in the economy. And of course, reason is risk aversion. The second is interest rate cuts. The government has effected successive interest rate cuts through the RBI last year over several months. It was expected that interest rate cuts will result in higher borrowing by corporates in order to invest in new projects. Nothing like that happened. Of course, interest rate cuts did not come down as much as the Reserve Bank had. The banks did not pass them on so quickly. But even if they would have, corporates are not willing borrowers. They are not willing to risk their own investments. They are certainly not going to take debt and invest it into projects at a time when they have uncertainty and lack of confidence in their mind. The next step that the government took was to actually put money directly into the hands of MSMEs. MSMEs were given money. The real estate sector has been provided money. Automobile sector has been provided money. But none of it transformed into growth. These recipients have been direct beneficiaries of money given by the government, whether by way of loans or all kinds of grants. It has not been transformed into fresh investments, or these entrepreneurs are not willing to risk their benefits into new ventures. Again, risk aversion, suspicion about the way the government rules work. The government recapitalized banks. They have been recapitalized to the tune of over 3 lakh crores. It was expected that because of this massive recapitalization of banks by the government, the banks will resume fresh lending to corporates in a big way. Nothing like that happened. Fresh lending has been at a multiple year low, and in the last 6 months, banks have preferred to deposit their surplus funds to the tune of 4 lakh crores with the Reserve Bank of India, earning a pathetic rate of interest, and they are not willing to risk it into new loans. Not that corporates are willing to take, but even bankers are not willing to lend. The common factor here is risk aversion and suspicion. While the government has been recapitalizing the banks, the likes of the Prime Minister himself have been assuring bankers, lend boldly, do not be afraid of any backlash, hoping that scared and feared bankers are going to give higher loans. Bankers have not been moved, and loan delivery or fresh sanctions, as we said, remain at a multiple year low. In fact, in order to ask the entrepreneurs to revive their animal spirits, the Prime Minister has said that we are with you. We are your companion and we are not your obstacle in whichever part of the country you wish to expand. Even that has not managed to reassure the skittish entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs who are risk averse and are suspicious of the government moves. So we are in a situation where all the measures that have been taken by the government, including measures to directly give money to the entrepreneurs, have failed to take off. And that, according to us, has been because of risk aversion and suspicion towards the moves of the government. That gets to us what needs to be done. What we need to do in order to get this suspicion out of the minds, or to reduce or mitigate the attitude of risk aversion, is to first simplify the laws. We need to reduce laws, we need to simplify laws, we need to reduce their complexity, and we need to reduce the cost of compliance of laws. And a huge, bold start needs to be made there. But sadly, the government, in its zeal to control, in its zeal to micromanage, does not vacate this regulatory space. It only makes it more and more crowded. The next thing that needs to be done to restore confidence and drive away suspicion is to ensure that judicial and bureaucratic uncertainties do not hit businesses by way of contingencies such that their very business or capital is eroded. That needs to be urgently attended to. Otherwise, every businessman is only going to be extremely suspicious of what is the next government notice that he gets, which will only harm his business and pave more obstacles in his business. That means the cavalier attitude of the government in making new laws, rules and regulations, as we have seen in the case of corporate laws, that needs to be controlled. We are seeing something like the Companies Act having rules after rules coming in, and they have only hindered business. They have criminalized the law in such a huge way, nobody wants to start new companies. The government is now seized with this issue, and we are told that the FM is trying to decriminalize the companies law. But the fact is, this happened out of a very cavalier attitude. That needs to be curtailed, that needs to be terminated. To restore confidence further, to dispel suspicion, entrepreneurs need to get their refunds and whatever are their other grants and payments from the government on time. That is extremely important. Otherwise, why will entrepreneurs want to do business with the government even if the government wants to do higher and higher business with the enterprises? That also needs to be taken care of. If that is done, what will come is a feeling that the government genuinely wants to remove obstacles from the businessmen's lives. We need to give them a feeling that the government is sensitive about the needs of the businessmen. What we need is laws which are simpler and they don't start with suspicion. And that's where the problem lies. Mr. Chandra is very right in pointing these factors as a reason why the Indian economy's growth has been stalled. As we said, this is beyond numbers. This is a matter of restoring confidence in the minds of entrepreneurs. This is Akhilesh Bhargava signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.